Okay, welcome back, everyone. So as promised, we've got another kind of customer showcase, this time by University of Brighton. And this is Cameron and Nick, and they're going to show how they use MEDIAL. So I'll leave it to you guys. I think in the interest of time, we've got about half an hour max. So I think, actually, no, I haven't got the lapel mic, so you're going to have to go on this mic. So that's okay, John, isn't it? Yeah, okay, cool, great. Thanks guys.
Okay, well, given the itinerary, welcome to the version 6 talk-through for the afternoon. Yeah, we're from the University of Brighton, and thank you for allowing us to come and talk to you. We'll blat through it as sort of reasonably fast as we can to make space for the rest of the afternoon. That's not the whole university. We're split across 5 campuses, but that's probably one of the more picturesque ones. And as it says, I'm from Central Media Services. That's one of our more state-of-the-art cameras you can see in the corner there. And Nick is from the e-learning team.
Hopefully you can hear me through this. I've got my lapel mic hooked up. So just starting off with a little bit of background then to how we're using MEDIAL and how we started off using MEDIAL. So if I just click here and a little bit of magic. So this is our own branded version of MEDIAL, which we've called Media Stream. So this is our landing page for University of Brighton, to just give you a bit of a background. And so Cameron's now going to talk about the kind of how this came about and the pilot.
Okay, what I'm going to say, I don't think it's going to surprise any of you. I think it's very similar to all of your stories. So don't prepare to be not massively wowed by this. Before 2013, back in the dim, distant dawn of time, when to rip somebody else off, it all looked like a Yes cover. We were basically a poor little unit, and we cobbled together a series of solutions. Initially, we used Microsoft Media Server and Darwin Streaming Server. I don't know if anybody else did that way back when, because they were both free. That's why we did it. And then we transitioned to various flavors of Adobe Flash Media Server, and then onto Wowzer. It was characterized by an intensive workload, mostly not involving the customer, which meant there was a certain amount of customer frustration and also frustration from the staff who were trying to do other things. It meant that the service wasn't particularly well known. We ended up with a lot of low-resolution videos, which were not particularly exciting because, obviously, we'd encoded at that level, and then later on, people could watch in better quality, and it wasn't particularly impressive. And we got to the point we were thinking of writing our own solution with PHP, Oracle, and Wowzer. And then our boss found down the back of the sofa some money, and we embarked on a Helix and MEDIAL pilot in 2013. It ran independently of the existing service, and it still does. It provided us the option to get that self-service, improved customer experience, which people were starting to ask for. Streaming media was starting to come into people's homes, and as we know, in the old days, you used to go to universities if you wanted technology. Now you go home. That's where it all is. And then you come to university and go, why can't I do what I can do at home at university? It's because it costs money. It increased the range of players provided, and the pilots, the pilot raised the profile of the service quite highly amongst opinion-forming members of the academic community, and that was key. We sought out people who were not on the bleeding edge, but people who were opinion formers, got them on board, and they liked what they saw. They liked the ease of use and the functionality, and that was how we decided to move forwards. Our entire university is based primarily on Active Directory with some LDAP integration. Everything we do has to be able to do that. And we were concerned about how that was going to work. The pilot allowed us to do all the proper tire kicking that was necessary for AD and for our existing relay service, which we still run to this day. And of course, it was vital that it had to work in a pretty easily usable way with Blackboard. So the pilots ticked all those boxes. And so in 2015, we obviously weren't in a huge hurry, we ran it as a proper service. It was a soft launch, still running parallel with the existing service. And the reason we went for a soft launch was we weren't quite sure what kind of impact it was going to have. We had a virtual machine infrastructure which we were running, and we weren't sure whether or not all the transcoding was just going to bring everything to a grinding halt, whether or not we were going to compromise everything, the payroll system would crash, people wouldn't, people would be picking up torches and pitchforks and coming after us. So we thought we'd take it easy and also try and get a toe in with the actual mainstream academic early adopters. That went really well, and in 2016 we went for a hard launch. We integrated with the rest of the information services team to make sure that we had a full range of documentation, support material, training, and we've been going great guns ever since.
Okay.
Back to Nick.
And then in terms of results, then I guess the big one, really the successful one's been the increased engagement with staff, who so for them really media stream, I say our kind of version of MEDIAL's become part of the vernacular really. So they talk about kind of media stream, using media stream. That's kind of taken over from how people kind of talk about YouTube. So they kind of understand. I think that's the other big thing. They kind of understand what it is, because initially, certainly during the pilot, I mean that was a bit of a challenge getting across what's essentially could be quite a complex system or workflow, but people sort of get that, and because of obviously our integrations as well with Relay. So it's kind of a longer kind of workflow potentially, but yeah, certainly a lot of engagement, a lot of uptake, obviously fast content for staff, great. Then kind of integration with Blackboard, so how they can serve that content to kind of students, to an audience. And so we've also got, in terms of, so access to other types of content, so live events, which of course can be archived events as well. And really just sort of pulling all that media content under one roof, and that was one of the kind of big aims, was to kind of have a one-stop shop for serving media content, whether that's kind of video or audio or kind of whatever type of event. So so good results. Okay, and then that's hand back to you for the technical bit.
Okay, the technical stuff. This is not very technical. It's just a quick slide of what we basically do. So we run VMware vSphere infrastructure for pretty much everything. We've got rid of almost every hardware box that isn't supporting that particular infrastructure. We're running our installation just on a single virtual machine running Server 2008 R2. 4 cores, because the version we've got only supports the 4, 8 gig of RAM, and we have a couple of slices at 1.99. No, not 2 terabytes, but 1.99 terabytes each, which we then merge together. It does. There are times when you're not too sure if we're doing a lot of live streaming, if it's quite up to the job. But for the moment, it fulfills all of our needs, and that was a really big surprise for us. We weren't sure what the impact was going to be. It hasn't caused floods, famine, or any other signs of apocalypse to the rest of the information services offerings. People still get paid, so we're very pleased with the results of our decision to go with Helix/MEDIAL. And in terms of the Active Directory stuff, our AD structure, I don't know if it's the same as yours, it's not really based around groupings which would be useful academically. So we don't have courses in there or cohorts or anything like that. I know some people do, and I wish we had that opportunity. We don't. So for us, it's really staff, students, courses, groupings for things like mail lists, that kind of things. So they're useful, but they're not. It doesn't really allow us to tailor our delivery of this stuff, although obviously Blackboard does allow that to some extent. So, but that's down to our AD infrastructure. We're currently working, as I guess a lot of you are, on bringing the cloud offerings of Office 365 into our on-site facilities. And so there's a lot of harmonizing there. We've been merging tenancies. We've moved away from the term collapsing tenancies because it suggests something catastrophic. Relay, we have 2 servers which have been running along for many a year. Each can handle 3 concurrent streams. And so we have, as you can see from the maths, 6 concurrent streams we can handle. We've been experiencing some backlogs with that recently. But it works well, and it's a metaphor that people understand.
Okay, and then so from the learning and teaching perspective, so I'm just going to mention 2 examples where we've been very successfully using MEDIAL. So first one is using kind of flipped classroom model. So this is an example for so pre-entry students. So over the summer, for student applications or student applicants, we wanted to kind of serve content so that they could kind of get up to speed over the summer as a kind of introductory module for their courses. And this was kind of across the various schools at the university. So MediaStream was a great way to kind of serve that content, and it sort of gave a lot of kind of control for academics for how they wanted to kind of create and I say kind of serve that content. So I mean, for instance, and we have got an example here which I can play in a minute, but so some went for a very kind of slick kind of studio based content, so kind of with Cameron's team. So they wanted kind of with the head of school, with a kind of filmed interview, and kind of others wanted more of a bit more of a kind of on the fly kind of approach using their mobile device. But certainly that content all went through MediaStream and then served to students through the VLE, so through Blackboard. But also with MediaStream, because of the permissions, that gave us or gave the academics a lot of flexibility in terms of who could access that content. So obviously these are kind of enrolled students, so they don't have full access, but we can obviously give them access to the content as needed. So so I think I've probably covered the benefits there. So just have we got time just to play a little example? So this is one of the kind of more slicker versions from one of our academics in the course
School of Environment.
Talking about geology.
And the reason we picked this piece of footage will become. I'll relate to it later on, but it was all shot in the studio, and then just with the green screen background and Chrome, we just put in the background that she wanted from her slides. Worked nicely. And the response from the students, I think, has been, or prospective students, have been quite good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking over you. Sorry.
Yes, great, thanks. So we won't make you watch the full video. So
not without sound, anyway.
Okay, great. So just the second example then of using MediaStream as an assessment. So with the Blackboard integration, the LTI tool, and this, we've got several examples now of using this across different courses, but I was just picked this one. So this was through the medical school, and they wanted to kind of experiment with students recording kind of a TED-style talk, but very easily on their mobile device. So they actually, because we use Relay, and so we can support the Fuse app as well. So that using the Fuse app on their device, but then obviously served to or uploaded to MEDIAL, and then with the Blackboard integration, so they're able to upload it to MEDIAL, and then submit via Blackboard for marking. And if I just go to the next slide. So so that gave them then the options for not only kind of for that video to be marked, to be graded, but also to share with their class. So for their peers, they could share for a kind of peer feedback, but also for a wider audience as well if they wanted to. So the videos were actually on any topic they wanted. So it wasn't a medical subject, but it was something, a kind of skill perhaps they wanted to kind of talk about. So kind of a training video perhaps. And so it's something that they could kind of take away, beyond the course, and then kind of use that maybe as a kind of a bit of self-promotion. So. And then, so just moving on to live streaming then. So there's kind of a few examples of how this has been used at the University of Brighton. So if I hand back to Cameron.
Oh, okay.
To,
Yeah, we did a TEDx talk. I don't know if you guys have done any of them. Any of you, done TEDx? Cool stuff. Obviously, we couldn't stream our TEDx through our medial installation because TED take a dim view of that. They want it via TED. But it did allow us to provide it as a watch again option. What was great, the reason I picked this one is that the young man who features on this, I think he was 15 at the time, and he was explaining he's an app developer. And he was so lovely. He was by far the most, I think, compelling of the people we had. And he was just telling about the fact that his parents somehow managed to get him some money together to buy him a laptop, and he put this together. I was stood next to his dad. I have never seen a more proud human being in my life. So that's just an example of us being able to utilize the medial option, even though it was via TED, as an extension of our production unit. So we're used to thinking of this stuff as being part of something that students can use, that staff can use in terms of their own workflows, but it becomes a very important part of our ability to deliver very, very high quality content directly to people in an extremely polished way. So it was just a nice example there. As I say, it's supported by us. And then, there's also the eponymous, I'm sure we all do this, graduation ceremony, which we all stream out relentlessly to all the people who couldn't be there. So the friends and family from far away who want to see people coming across the stage. I'm not going to make you watch it because it's probably quite like yours. So limitations. Well, ours, I suspect it won't surprise any of you to find out that cobbled together system we talked about way back, we're still running it. The reason we're running it is because nobody has the time to go through it and find out what we don't need anymore. So we run the system because some of it might be in use. We don't even know that. Our AD grouping still isn't very granular, so we still struggle with being able to use the medial aspect of things independently of something like Blackboard. It's not a huge problem, but it's sort of frustrating. Our current relay infrastructure is a bottleneck, and we're finding that challenging. I spent most of yesterday unpicking the latest snarl up. That's not to say that relay hasn't been brilliant to us, it has, and the people at TechSmith have been immense in their support. We've been very, very happy with it, but there are some issues. We need to move from our old virtual machine infrastructure to our new one. That shouldn't be a big deal, but I say that now. If it is, I'll let you know. And of course, the little matter of budget. Even though we have an infinite amount of money in our very small budget, it doesn't actually cover the things that we'd like to be able to do. Things that we find limiting with medial, well, there aren't that many things, to be honest, because they work so hard on fixing the things we bring up. Securing of content is one of them, and it's something that's very nearly fixed. The fact that if you go via the portal, you can secure things nicely, but if you take the embed code, you can circumvent a lot of this stuff, has been a concern. There was a really nice solution in place with the session manager. Unfortunately, fixing one of our other problems has slightly knocked that off kilter, but I think we're probably one update away from having that all sorted. So we're nearly at the position where we can secure to our level of happiness. And that's one of the reasons why we continue to use the relay server, because you have to be able to know what the file's called to be able to get to the relay content, whereas with medial, it's a number. The delete conundrum, this is, I don't know if you guys suffer from this. We do. You can obviously put categories down to individual AD groupings, and you can make administrators in that AD grouping, but then anybody in that group can delete any of the content in that category. And it's not that people might do it maliciously, I suppose they might, but it's unlikely. It's just that they might do it accidentally. So at the moment, we have almost no people with admin access. Is that the way you guys run it? Yeah? And then it becomes a request that comes through our service desk, and then we have to go through, and we have to be very paranoid about making sure we delete the right thing. If there was an option perhaps to have the originator be the person who could delete it, irrespective of the category it was in, that might be useful. The lack of 360-degree video support. I don't know if anybody else has mentioned this today, 360 video, but it's something we're getting a certain amount of pressure from. To be honest, I guess like you, we have no idea if it's going to turn into another 3D TV thing. If it's just going to be one of those things that people are mad keen on, and they go, actually, I'm not really that bothered. It feels like there's going to be more life to it than that, and we're getting a lot of requests for it. So we're looking forward to that support coming in. And the future. I can't remember. You were doing this, weren't you? Yes.
Some of this, I think it's a joint. So the future. So is it 360? So that's what we've been kind of experimenting with a bit over the past year. So there's a nice picture here, nice example from a few weeks ago. So this was a couple of occupational health students who were, I don't know if you can make it out there, but that's actually a Ricoh Theta camera strapped, on top of a tripod strapped to a wheelchair. So they were kind of experimenting with the sort of point of view of a wheelchair user around campus. So this was their idea of, I thought it was quite a neat little solution. And so we've been experimenting with we've got a few of these cameras, so experimenting with the content, with the capture, but really, yes, it would be great to have something more streamlined in terms of sort of serving that content. And obviously one of the big issues there is the quality, or at least the resolution that would need to be supported for 360. And I mean, MEDIAL lecture has been mentioned quite a bit, so that's kind of a next step for us, which I don't think I mentioned actually, because we're currently on version 5, as I meant to mention earlier, but we upgraded over the summer, so we're kind of exploring some of these things. And then I know you're going to mention about a few more kind of technical requirements there for terms of encoding.
Well, first of all, I want to address the top point, which is the continued thanks from us to the folk at MEDIAL, particularly Dave, who has put up with endless amounts of nonsense from me and with incredible patience, but also the rest of the team. We really, really do appreciate it, and you're very quick to respond, and that's not a small thing, so a great thanks for that. In terms of things that we're definitely looking forward to, because of the DDA stipulations, captioning, obviously, we're all looking forward to that. How all of us fund it, I think, is probably something that, who knows how that works, but we're looking forward to seeing how you bring in, shortly when you show us, how you bring in the captioning aspect into things. The 360 video support, we're not sort of forgetting the fact that actually that requires a great increase in terms of the amount of data that's throughput. I guess most of us are probably looking forward to the latest round of 5.2K cameras that are about to emerge, like actually I won't give a brand name because that would be unfair. There are many fine 360 cameras that are in the offing, which will give us a much better view when they come out, but it's going to require a lot more in terms of data throughput, which means that the 4K request should be a doddle in comparison, because it'll be less than that. Obviously, the H.265 HEVC, I'm kind of really looking forward to that, and I'm kind of not, because I'm interested in it from my perspective, but I'm not sure that we have that many machines in our teaching spaces that are capable of dealing with it. So, don't knock yourselves out over that one. Different encoding profiles for different groups. This is just a request from my section. We love the speed of encoding, and we love the results, except for the stuff we do, where we're out knocking our socks off, trying to get the absolute best quality with the most gorgeous, lustrous video images, and then we upload it, and we get artifacts and sort of grayness. So if we could have, not just us, but the option for a slightly different encoding profile for different jobs or different groupings, that would be useful. Our section is also responsible for the video conferencing solution, which, like you guys, I think Skype for Business is, or /Teams, is what we've gone for. I don't know what kind of integration you could do, but I thought I'd bring it up just in case. And we're using Microsoft Sway for this presentation, and it doesn't like your embed code. So, just letting you know, really.
It's like an iPhone. Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't like that. It doesn't like the JavaScript either. It's Microsoft for you. They're a fine institution, obviously. And I think, oops.
Just
Any questions?
questions, yeah.
Questions from the floor? Anyone? I think Andrew's got the mic behind you. I think it's the blue one, I think.
So what are you going to do with your legacy content? Are you just going to leave it there forever, or are you going to...
I suspect what we're going to do is we will quietly switch the servers off at some point in the time-honoured tradition and wait to see if anybody moans about it, at which point we'll switch them back on, fish out the content, upload it into MEDIAL, and then switch them off again. So it'll be that sort of slow workflow.
That's exactly what we did.
A very wise choice.
And within an hour, someone complained saying, I've got a lecture and my video doesn't play. And when we looked at it, it was 25 years old. And my question was, why are you showing a video from 19...
It's probably a history teacher.
Yeah. But it proved that people were still using it. And so we just took... But we have, as I showed, we have a number of different systems where content resides. And so we're trying to solve that conundrum at the moment, aren't we? We've taken the view that we'll take the last year's worth of content and migrate that, and then go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Our old system is on our old virtual machine infrastructure, so actually it's probably one of those things that we can just quietly sit there because we'll be moving on to the new one. And as we all know, storage is incredibly cheap, unless you've got it triple redundancy, tier 1, and all the rest of it.
Just to add, a good thing about MEDIAL is that it ingests Flash content perfectly. So we've got a lot of old FLV content, and we can easily just put that into MEDIAL, which is really nice.
Yep, absolutely.
Ryan, do you want to, sorry, Andrew, do you want to hand the mic to Ryan?
Question from Wowzer. Wow.
Yeah, question from us. Very self-serving promotional question, but it actually comes with a real purpose. And I've met Ben Taskett during several presentations, so I'll be interested to get feedback. But the idea of deploying MEDIAL and deploying Wowzer on premises gets you so far for some events that maybe you want to scale for larger, or you're doing, in the case of UCL, they want to scale and offer live streaming to more, and sometimes what you have on site doesn't suffice. Wowzer's trying to help. This is where it's self-promoting, is we have our cloud product and our CDN integration. But the reality is I'd like to know more about, from the universities and educational institutions, what is the best solution there? A lot of it are the restrictions of you have a finite budget that you have to spend once a year, and you can't spend ongoing month to month, pay as you go, and have a credit card on file. I know that's a huge pain point for many of these divisions. What is your strategy for this? Because it would be nice for Wowzer to know, so we can have a better solution that fits into this mold.
Strategy. It's a combination of different things, really. There is the issue with, I think, I forget who it was who mentioned the complications of working with people in charge of finances, as they have just simply, they're fine people, but they have a different set of priorities, and they don't always mesh particularly well, so it can be complicated. One of our concerns is we've got a 10 gig link now for everybody to use across 5 campuses over 3 towns in Sussex, plus affiliates in various other places, and the network is extensive and is being modernised, and they're doing a fine job on it. But if I mentioned the idea of just throwing all of the video content that we could possibly generate, and we don't generate anything like the kind of stuff that we've heard so far, but we hope to, out across the network, then network services get one of those kind of brain freeze headaches that, when it just all gets a bit too much. We could look to it. Certainly the cost internally of maintaining a resilient infrastructure is extensive, but at the moment we have the capacity, and we haven't really generated the load that means that we're taxing that particularly, although people are going through the storage at a rapacious rate. One of the problems we have, and something we didn't mention, is that whereas a lot of you have already got a lot of infrastructure in spaces like this for capturing, you have maybe security cameras which you've repurposed, and you have audio reinforcement systems. Whilst we've got the audio in some places, breaking into it is difficult. We don't have any cameras. So we're starting from zero. One of the things we're actually quite interested in, another plug about the 360 video thing, is whether or not we can turn 360 cameras into a lecture capture solution. Because if we stuck one, say, here, we wouldn't be getting the glare that we saw from over there. And then potentially, people can read that without actually having to capture it separately. They can see the presentation and the presenters, and it could be an option for us to kind of catch up to where you guys are all already at. Of course, there's the ethical issue about the fact that you'd all be filmed as well, and it may well be that people in the audience don't want to be filmed. So, not too sure about that.
Yeah, that's the conundrum that we came up against, is that it's difficult enough for all lecturers to want to be captured, but you have the issue when you're recording the students, a wider issue. So it's always pointed out to me that there's probably students at UCL whose family don't know they're actually at UCL. They come from parts of the world where, or extended family don't know they're there.
Absolutely.
So there are issues, data protection issues around that, and but we have been asked on a number of occasions. I've got the, can we do that? Would it be possible to do that? And as for Ryan, your thing is that with the demise of the on-premise Echo 360, that still leaves us with 4 instances of Wowser. I think it's 4, isn't it? We're piggybacking off those already. I think we'll be looking at how we can, they won't be required anymore as of next year. We'll be looking at how we can utilise those without, and see what happens. So if we can link those existing Wowser servers, we don't use those, we use the built-in MEDIAL, but we'd be looking at actually how we could use those to deliver to a wide, and we use YouTube, of course, as well. But that has its own issues as well. We're trying to get the message out to parts of the world where YouTube doesn't actually exist. So that's another point.
Sorry, it just occurs to me, I'm not sure I actually answered your question at all. I just sort of wandered off, as I tend to do, down some cul-de-sac. And was any of that useful that I said?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, well, as long as you think so. So I think probably we should get out of here. No?
It's not. I think it was sorry, I don't know if I think it's to kind of answer part of Ryan's thing, which is going to come up in the next presentation. So it's more about, from a server point of view, like Tony's saying, he's got these Wowser servers that are hanging around. When we did the load testing on Wowser for Live, we're seeing like 600 streams per server, approx. So when you're doing these kind of heart-stopping live events, so even these guys doing graduation, I mean, okay, people say, well, 600 people aren't going to watch a graduation. Well, I know that some graduations 600 don't watch, but I've seen ones where thousands of people have watched it, all wanting to watch just that one bit where they get given the scroll and the thing. But the question is you could do that at UCL by dividing it out onto those servers. But the thing that I'm going to show you now in V6 is more kind of to Ryan's question, where he's saying, well, there's this cloud service that Wowzer have. Effectively, that live stream that I showed earlier, so we showed the pre-roll, the post-roll, and we showed the live stream. Well, that live stream doesn't necessarily have to be coming from your on-premise Wowzer server. You could be coming from the cloud. And that's actually how we're doing it today, the live stream that's going out. Because of V6, we're going to do that. But Ryan said there is a pain point there in that that's something that Cameron and Nick have then got to go, where's our university credit card to pay for this?
It's not in here, I'll tell you that.
So it's a difficult one. It's almost like, wowza, you need to kind of accept POs or something. I don't know. It's a billing thing is difficult on that. But for us, I mean, the ideas that we've toyed with is kind of, maybe including it as part of a renewal, as like a bundle or something, so that we can kind of almost like put that in with someone's renewal, and then they get a certain amount of hours of processing time or whatever. And similar thing with the captions as well. That's another way of kind of pricing it. So at least it's, something that's part of an existing project or whatever. Because when I've met with people, they've said, we want to do this captioning, but if you were to say, we can have a certain amount of hours of captioning and it's part of MEDIAL, that's probably going to fly. But if I just say, I need this money for captioning, somebody's going to say, well, we know we have to do it, but where's the budget going to come from? We're not going to get the budget. Whereas getting an extra, I don't know, £1,000 or something might not be as difficult. So it's kind of serving that user base. And that might work for the cloud as well. It's probably a separate discussion me and Ryan have not had it anyway. Okay, so thanks very much, Cameron and Nick. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. All right.
We're going to go to a really short intermission, like 5 minutes, and then we're going to be back, and I'm going to do the V6 preview. Okay.